the Forged and Unbroken podcast.
I appreciate you doing this. And
yeah, it's an honor.
I think actually the first thing I want to get into, because you and I are both baseball fans, sports fans, I'm just going to have like a little icebreaker here. So if you're coming up to the plate, right? You got your walkout song. Mm-hmm. If you like, just imagine we're coming into shift, right? If you and the shift like all had your walkout songs, but it's like when you're coming into the firehouse, like getting ready to get on the rig, what would your Mike Nasti's walkout song be?
Oh man. Don't fear the Reaper, Blue Oyster Cult.
Ooh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
I dig it.
It's like, it's smooth, but it's got a cool message.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I just think that would just flow with just being kind of my demeanor. I try to keep just cool, calm, collected.
Yeah.
I think it'd set the tone really well.
I dig it. I love it. Now, I know you and I were nerding out the other day on just like leadership stuff, but then also promotion. I know you're studying for promotion, and I know we're actually ramping up here where I work as well. This is a two-parter. The first thing I want to know is, like, this is what you're doing on your platform, right? You're speaking and preaching leadership. You're talking to like just amazing thinkers and leaders in our space, and it's been super cool. I want to know for you though, how did you know you were ready to promote? Like, what was the linchpin that was like, okay, now's the time. I feel like I'm ready to take this next step.
So the first part though, I know it was a two-parter, but the first part I would get into is with my platform and everything that I do. I think I do preach leadership, but I do feel like this is also like, and we've talked about this, just between the, personally or whatever, and away from podcasts and then now on a podcast. A lot of this was just my own experience and knowledge. Like, I know how much I struggled my first 10 years of being an officer. And at the 9 and 10 year mark, I'm out now just brain dumping my experiences. Mm-hmm. That was really all it was. And I felt like if I could get my mistakes out, my experiences, my lessons, just the random nuances of stuff that no matter what book you read and no matter what you do, nothing will prepare you for that moment of being there. Because you're reading everyone else's experiences, and everyone else's experiences are not your experiences. And the books will not help you, only because the lessons of those books and lessons are only a matter of how you interpret and execute and apply everything, right? So, you could read The Men, the Mission, and Me, and you could read Extreme Ownership, and you can quote it, and that's great. But if you executed it crappy, or you don't execute at all, or you read all these books and then you don't do anything to change, it's all irrelevant, right? So I guess what I was getting at was, and this is something that I really anchor myself to, is I'm not anything special as far as a scholar. I'm not like this super experienced guy, but I think I have enough experience to look back and tell people what I wish I knew coming in, right? Mm-hmm. They're all lessons and experiences of stuff that I've gone through and stuff I've done very, very terrible at, but I've also done very, very well at, right? And I think when it came down to when I wanted to promote, I don't think anything, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really think anything was like, holy cow, I am now ready. Because I don't think anything's ever going to make you ready. You're never going to be prepared to take that next step. You can always talk about it, whatever you want. And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Where deep down in your mind, you're like, yeah, all right, I'm promoted. I'm walking in my first day. You get in and you're about an hour in and you're like, what did I do? Oh my God, what did I get myself into? Or that first fire that goes like crap, which is going to happen, it's going to come, or that first personnel issue, which is most likely going to happen very, very, very soon. And I'm not going to get into the personnel problem that I had because I can't, but long story short, I had a substantial issue within my first week, and it was not executed well on my end because of, I think, the lack of experience of how to handle that situation. But I think nothing will ever really prepare you. I think you have to make the decision to do it or not. And I think you should not sit there and do it for money or do it because you want to, in my case, you want to get off a medic unit, because we have to be paramedics to promote. Yeah. So a lot of people will run from the medic unit to get promoted. where I think you should figure out what your goal is, whatever your end goal is. Like me personally, at some point, God willing, I would like to be a battalion chief. I think it's something that I can do. I think it's a goal that I want to achieve. So to get to your goal, there's rungs in the ladder, right? So being a paramedic was a rung, being a lieutenant is a rung, being a captain is a rung. The end goal is becoming a battalion chief. What I feel like when I kind of realized, I think I'm ready to promote was when I started working for people that I did not like. I started working around people I didn't like. And the biggest thing for me, and I just talked about this the other day on my podcast, or on one of my posts, it might have been yesterday or the day before, I don't remember. Watching people I work with get treated like absolute crap and something bad happen to them from management or the department's, I'm trying to think of how to say this, ways of the department, they're getting screwed. And everybody everybody knows what I'm talking about. No matter what you do, no matter how good you are, at the end of the day, in human resources and all that, everyone else's eyes, you're a payroll number, you're a bill, and you're an ID number. That's all you are. And it's okay because they're managing, right? I get it. But watching coworkers, supervisors, guys that have less time on me, watching all of them get screwed continuously, and then you get the, hey man, sorry, that's just how it is. Bullshit. And that's when I realized, look, I'm tired of getting treated like this. I'm tired of seeing this guy. I'm tired of seeing this. I'm tired of seeing that. I'm not going to be a crusader and start a revolution, but I feel like,
there's a higher moral
kind of
ground
ready
here. Yeah.
I'm kind of ready I'm kind of ready to hopefully make a difference and keep others from going through what I went through and feeling what I felt like and being treated the way I was treated and, stuff like that. And I don't think anybody ever went out of their way to go after me. I honestly don't. But, you can either do something about it or you can just sit there and complain and whine and not change, right? And me being a lieutenant is going to change somebody's life. I don't know. I don't think so. But who knows? I mean, I could be the person in the position. I could be their officer to advocate, step up for them, open the doors or whatever, actually have authority and power. And that might make all the difference in the world for that person, because you never know what people are going through outside of work.
Absolutely.
And I've seen people, the straw that broke the camel's back was not that big of a deal at work, but that's caused it to snap and just created the tidal wave of everything. And I think that's when I kind of realized I was ready to promote, where I was qualified. I had time on. I knew just enough to get myself in trouble. And I just got tired of being treated a certain way and seeing people treated a certain way. So I know that was a little bit long-winded, and I think I talked in circles of just a little bit, but no, I think that was the biggest reason.
Yeah, no, I like that. The one word really resonated me with was application, when it's appropriate too. Like, you can have all this knowledge, you can read all the books, and sometimes you have to apply it. You can learn through other people's experiences, but there are plenty of times when, like, hey, the book says this, but the application here in the real world is not the right time or place. And you need to know when to pivot and adjust. And that's super imperative for what we do. You got to adjust on the fly. So to know when that application is appropriate is huge.
And I think the biggest thing that you don't see in a lot of books, and maybe, I might be wrong though, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I think the biggest lesson that anyone needs to learn is understanding how to read the room, right?
Yeah.
I think the firefighting and all, the calls are going to they really will take care of themselves with some fine tuning if needed, or a lot of fine tuning if they really need it. But I think the interaction with people is going to be the biggest thing, and communication will always be paramount. And one of the things that I lacked the most was good communication. 90% of communication is body language.
Yes.
And once I really learned that, and once I really understood body language and listening to understand, not listening to respond, a lot of things really started falling into place. And once you do that, and once you understand, your left and right parameters, or your area of operation, how you operate, the I don't want to say battle space because I'm not in the military, but like your area of operation. Once you really understand that, and you understand the parallels, and you listen to understand, not listen to respond, you project the correct body language, you understand how to interpret their body language, it will lead you to a substantial amount of more, how am I trying to say? You will be a lot more successful because you'll be able to communicate correctly. When you're able to communicate correctly and you're able to listen to understand, they will know what you're saying. They will know you are listening to what they are saying because they can see it, whether they want to recognize it or not. You know what I mean? Whether they understand it or not, is subconsciously, I don't know. What I will tell you is how you present yourself with your body language will lead you to 99% of your headaches or 99% of those turning points, right? Like, and I know this as an officer, you've been around long enough where you have that breakthrough with that employee or that coworker, that shipmate, where you feel like, man, I can't get through to this guy, we're butting heads, whatever it is. And then you really stop and evaluate how you are. And if you stop acting annoyed the second they walk in, or everything they do annoys you, you catch yourself rolling your eyes, you're very short with them. Once you realize that, and things need to change with that person, you're like, and you just focus on how you act and present it, the reciprocation from them comes back tenfold. And I did that with an employee once I realized what I was doing, and it was night and day. And there was a lot of problems where it was, well, I thought you were mad at me because of this. And I'm like, well, no, I thought you weren't listening to me because of that. And we had a good 2 years of we butted heads. And now we're good friends. We've been good friends for the last almost 10 years. Yeah. Like I talk to that guy all the time. You know what I mean? And it started out with a substantial amount of disrespect, and it was all from the message I was sending from not having good body language.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. I know Simon Sinek was just talking about this the other day, like when people are trying to have a conversation with you and just something as simple as like your phone is in your hand, you glance at your messages or so. It's showing the other person that like there might be something more important than the conversation we're having right now. So something as simple as just putting your phone down or putting it away to like really engage that person can be a night and day difference. And what you're talking about, you're going to get more empathy, collaboration, and trust. And that's what we're looking for. Like that's what's going to breed a healthy team culture, is that collaboration. And I like that answer.
And quick to jump, to piggyback off of that too. I've had people that I've talked to pick up their phone and get on it, but I know the person, it doesn't bother me because I know they're paying attention, right? I get it.
Yeah.
What sticks out to me is, and I see this with people that are older, with more experience, more life experience, good chiefs I see do this, good captains that I've worked for do this, some really good firefighters that are just good human beings I've seen do this. They'll be talking or whatever, or you'll be talking, excuse me, and they're engaged, eye contact, everything. Excuse me 1 second, I have to take this phone call. Hey, I got to check this message. I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you. Give me 1 second. Because they're really engaged. Yeah. Right. However, they're taking the time to stop you and tell you, I need to take this because it's important. Mm-hmm. It's not my decision what's important, what's not. That's you. Right. But for you, instead of just picking up your phone and just doing whatever, you're saying, Mike, hold on 1 second. I want to hear what you have to tell me. Give me 1 second. And I got you. I have to check this. Because I know what that feels like. I know what it's like to be in the position where you're talking to somebody that's important, but when in your quick Rolodex of priority, what you're talking to and what is coming up across your cell phone that's work related, if it's a personal message or an emergency or whatever, then you'd say, I have an emergency or whatever, fine, whatever. But something's pressing, but they take the time to say, excuse me 1 second. They're going, in my opinion, they're showing respect. They're giving respect by saying, hey man, give me 1 second. And they're carrying their position correctly and they're interacting correctly, I think, as a human being. And, I know that's a little bit off on not a tangent, but a little off in left field with it. But, taking that split second to ask you to hold on so they can do what they need to do is that unwritten rule of respect. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
Oh, totally.
It's symptomatic of other things because they all coincide.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. I think it shows like, hey, I'm giving you my undivided attention. I want to continue to do that. So let's not water this down. Give me a quick second. Something's going to take me. And then when I'm done, I'm going to come right back and give you 100% again. And I'd rather have that than you water it down. Yeah. The distraction, right?
I don't want to be distracted knowing something's going on that I need to respond to, or I need whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want undivided attention. And so if you need to do that, that means you're putting the priority on my attention or my message or whatever. I don't know how you want to say that.
No. I like that. You started going down this path. What do people underestimate the most when they do take that next step? I think the biggest step to me in the fire service is that firefighter to lieutenant or sergeant, however you do it, like that first officer rank. I think that's one of the largest changes and most humbling. Like even going from battalion to assistant or whatever, like that's not the greatest change to me, in my opinion, as that firefighter to officer rank.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, what's the thing that people underestimate the most, that if they go into the mindset of, okay, this is going to be my biggest hurdle, they can start working towards it?
I think the biggest thing, at least for me, was how you acted in the past. You can't change the past. Everybody knows everything, right? Telephone, telefriend, telefireman. Everybody knows everything. Everybody knows who's messing around with their wives. Everybody knows who cheated on their promotional test. Everybody knows who's going to bang out a week before they bang out. Like, I mean, everyone knows everything. And your life is always under a microscope as a firefighter, whether you know it or not. Because if you spend any time in a firehouse, especially with some of the more immature people, all they do is gossip and talk, right?
Yeah.
So the gossiping and talking can be really good. It could be real bad. And it could be a little bit of something in between. What you can't control is other people's interpretation. So I, in my experience, have learned to tune out certain things, right? There's things that I'll hear that I just immediately, I'll listen to the person because I like and respect the guy. But anything that you tell me with the guy, the minute it turns into gossip or rumors, I'll talk to you about it. But I'm not going to, I mean, it's not going to hold any weight with me.
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's say you wait, like for me, I waited 7 years. It was almost 8 years on the dot. Like my 8th year, I was an acting officer. And they got promoted within a month. But what I underestimated was how I acted all the way up to that, how you dress, how you carry yourself, the time you show up for work, whether you do reports or not, whether you wear your gear correctly or not, how you were on firegrounds, how you didn't do well on firegrounds, how you were on a medic unit, how you weren't on a medic unit, all those things people know and remember, right? And now you promote, you're accountable from those above you to hold a standard. Now, did you hold that standard before? Do you know the rules of how particular or how well you have to know your department's orders and policies? Because, yeah, shirts tucked in, buttons buttoned, pants, no pants tucked in boots. But last week you were a medic on a medic unit and you did everything you're not supposed to do. Now, Monday morning, you want them to do everything they're supposed to do. People don't get that.
Yeah.
Well, you used to do that. You do this. You do that. You do this. And they throw absolutely everything in your face. But your position and your accountability changes, right? So you always hear this concept of, oh, well, he got promoted to battalion chief or assistant chief or deputy chief or whatever. He drinks the Kool-Aid. Does he drink the Kool-Aid, or is it accountability change to where now he has to uphold those policies, right? So what I think people don't understand is that the time before you get promoted. So day one of promotion, or day one of becoming an officer, day one of becoming a leader in general, always starts from your first day at the training academy, and then how you carry yourself all the way up to the promotion. Because the biggest thing I underestimated was my reputation, history, and how I was beforehand, where I just went along, had fun, enjoyed myself, used my leave as much as I wanted, went and did absolutely everything and anything I wanted. I didn't let work get in the way of anything. And I think a whole lot about it. Now I'm an officer. When you are an officer, the minute that department puts out a memo that Josh Burchek, you are now promoted to lieutenant. Congratulations, you start Monday. You will forever never be one of the guys. It is over. Whether they acknowledge it, whether they admit it or not, it is over. You are not one of them. There's a group text, then there's a group text without the officer in it.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yep.
However, that's hard to wrap your mind around. How you do anything, everything, how you do anything is how you do everything. So you will be continuously under the microscope. They will know absolutely everything you said, date, time, place, people around. They will know everything you've ever done, mostly bad, mostly not good, and almost all your mistakes, never the things you've done well, or they won't tell you about them. The feedback of absolutely anything is over. You'll never get a good job, pat on the back, nothing. Thank God you're our officer. You're doing really good, whatever. That is gone. Not that you need it.
Yeah.
However, it's, to me, this has been something that, and I want to think about this with you for a minute, or talk about this with you for a minute. I have often found myself not understanding where I was as far as if I'm doing well or not as an officer.
Yeah.
Firehouse with the people. And no one's going to come out and talk to you about it. Do not go and ask people for that. To me, that shows a sign of weakness, and that shows a sign of insecurities. I think you could take it situation by situation, where you could find somebody pretty close to your time on, your experience and your mindset, and say, hey, I think I could have done better on that call. I think I should have done this, and this, right? Don't ever talk about your shortcomings with subordinates, because it shows insecurities. You should talk about things you could have done better. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's a very nuanced difference, but I completely understand what you're saying. It's hey, let's critique this so we can get better. Sure. Where I'm not just going to sit there and like play the blame game with myself. It shows that you're taking ownership, and at the same time you're still critiquing and still like being the head guy, right? It's a small difference, but it's a big one.
You have to walk a very, very fine line, because being humble and being insecure they're not far off, and it's all a matter of how you present it, right?
Yeah.
The body language, the way you talk, the way you can. It's, there's, when it comes to me, I have they're not really formal mentors. They're just guys I've been friends with that I forced my need of a mentor on. I say that in jest, but no, there's two people that I'm very good friends with that work in my department that are a similar rank. We all work together as firefighters. Their rank's higher than I am. And I'll go to them, but I don't go to them to complain. I'll go to them with, this is what happened. This is what I did. This is what I think. I'm curious of your opinion. And I think doing that is much better. Is a much more productive way, because you get the advice that you need. They're going to tell you the truth. There's no impartiality, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And then it forces you to communicate correctly, because you have to communicate all the facts, not just the facts that you want to hear to make yourself feel better.
Yes. When
you make a mistake. So any insecurities or anything you're not sure about, you talk to your mentors. Being humble is something you talk about with your crew. I do think when you're not sure if you handled something correctly, like let's say it's an ALS call and you have a medic on your shift, and it's an ALS thing and you're just not sure, and you're like, hey man, why do we do X, Y, and Z? I'm not really sure I would have done that. What do you think? Well, you're now doing a few things. You're teaching yourself. You're showing that you're invested in the calls, no matter what the calls are, mm-hmm. right? But then you're also, when you're talking to that individual, whether they understand it or not, you're asking for their expertise, which means you trust them.
Yes.
Right. So you're building that rapport. You're building that commonality of, or the humility of, hey, look, you're better at this than I am. However, collectively, we need to do this together. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's how I would handle that. Or like, somebody that has more experience in the suppression in a certain area, hey dude, I'm thinking this, what do you think? Or, we did this on this call and I think I probably should have done that. And then when you start doing those things over time, it's going to come back to you. So you can tell if you have control and respect or not. It's palpable. It's there. You're going to know if it's there, and whether you want to admit it or not, you will know when it's not there. So when it's there, You need to keep stoking those flames, right? When it's not there, or you notice something, you need to pull that person aside, and you need to say, hey, dude, I'm starting to have a trouble between telling whether you're joking with me or throwing a jab. I can't see it anymore, and it really feels like you're kind of throwing jabs at me, and we really need to talk about it, right? But again, it's that heavy balance of, it's not scrutiny, but the criticism that you will get as an officer is not like anything you've ever had in your career. Here's why. I don't know if you've been privileged enough to experience this or not, but people talk when you're not around. Mm-hmm. It's going to get back to you, right, wrong, or indifferent. And this has not happened in my firehouse. This has not happened with my crew. So I got to make sure I clarify that right now. Very clear. Not my station, not my shift. Some people are not smart enough to check the room when they talk about you, right? I have seen that. That is an experience that is not great. It's not fun because you don't want to be the person they're talking about like that, but it's also pretty funny considering the source. So the source is going to immediately be like, sure, dude, whatever I suck, I'm a shitbag, you got it. You're right. But the simple, and I'll talk to you about that after we record, because I'm not going to get into details, but the long story short, if you've done the groundwork and worked your ass off to be a good officer and be a good person, when those things happen, like I talked about those previous years before you got promoted and everything you do thereof, those individuals will know, that what the person's saying is bullshit. So
for sure. I know for me, I need to have, I liken it to a confidant. I had a mentor tell me once, like, listen, you're not going to get through this if you don't have a confidant. And it can be a mentor. It doesn't have to be a mentor. They usually are. For me, sometimes that is one of the senior people on the shift, as long as I can, we have that relationship. And there might even be there's usually one outside of the station and shift. And that confidant is somebody that I can go to, I can bounce those ideas off of or get a pulse of what's going on. And they can check me. And then there's also times when maybe I need to relay a message down, or sometimes they're like, hey, you know what? This happened the other day on another shift. And I think it's really powerful when that person can be like, hey, you know what? Actually, I need you to leave the kitchen, go to your office. The firefighters need to take care of something right now. Yeah. And that's usually a healthy sign of things. But you have to have a confidant in this profession. Yeah. You're not going to make it out. You're not going to make it out of it. You're kind of going down that road. And I've certainly experienced this when you take leadership positions, when you're making decisions, even in some of the social media world stuff that we're getting wrapped up in. You think we're trying to do everything with the best of intentions. And I always try to assume positive intent. That's something my wife and I talk about, like, man, that thing rubbed me the wrong way, or I didn't appreciate how this happened. We're like, well, hold on. They may not have meant it the way that we're receiving it. So we try to assume positive intent, but at the end of the day, if you're a leader, you're making hard decisions, you're not going to make everyone happy. And you may get blowback. You're going to piss one or two people off. Yeah. You're not going to make everybody happy. And if you are, that probably means you're not doing a good job or not holding a high standard, right? So I feel like you're starting to kind of go down that road. Like, how do you handle that? Like, it's a decision, person, event. I know you already mentioned like your mentors that you're turning to, but like you're not going to make everybody happy. Like, how does that sit with you? Because I know sometimes it can be really freaking hard. Like I know I'm hard on myself, but at a certain point I'm like, nah, I'm standing behind what I did and what I said. And this is maybe one or two people and everybody else is towing the line.
Well, I think it's all a matter of who they are. I don't think you should ever discount people, but if I'm not going to come to you for any sort of advice, I'm not going to listen to any type of critiques you have to have with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not a disrespect thing, but it's all a matter of who it is.
Sure.
So, what I've learned in my time is that if you make a decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Like, let's say your decision is to do something tactical, whatever this tactical decision is, and it just doesn't work out for you. Like, it was just the wrong decision. You made a decision. That's just the way it is. Every single person that has ever ridden a fire truck, ridden a medic unit, been in a buggy, been a chief. Well, some they should have at some point. Knows what it's feel like to just absolutely screw up on a call, right? A lot of the good ones understand when they sit in the back, the decisions of what's up front is not something they've done or been privy to, right? They understand their scope is what their job is. So if you are up there making a decision and it just doesn't work out, it's much different than not being able to make a decision, not knowing what you're doing, and not having any clue as where to start. I don't know if that makes sense or not, and I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but decisions made with experience-based reasons and the scenario just doesn't work out is much different than when if you have no clue what you're doing, and they can see that, right? Hey, let's run this 400-foot line or this 250. We're going to reach. We're good. Whatever. And then you turn around and you should have ran the 400 because 300 because what you didn't see was that padlock gate in the back. And there's no way anybody would have saw that unless you physically went back there, because we don't have GPS cameras on our fire truck that shows an aerial view. Right? There's just stuff that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But when those things are far and few between, and you have a crappy situation. Really good ones, and the crappy one, and then a lot of really good ones, and a couple crappy ones, and then some really good ones. That is consistency over time of competence, confidence, and abilities. And I think that would be the difference. I really do, because, I've had a few mistakes where I'm just like, man, I really didn't think that was the way it was going to go. And then I'm waiting to kind of get peppered. But then it's, yeah, dude, I don't think I would do anything different. Or, yeah, I would have tried this, but it still wouldn't have worked out because of, X, Y, and Z.
This curveball, yeah.
Yeah, this curveball. I didn't expect that curveball, or, and my personal favorite is, you're going down a path, but then they kind of check you a little bit, like, hey, I think we should run this other line because I'm pretty sure that's not going to work. And then you take a split second, you do it. And they're giving you input. Because on fireground, on emergency incidents, it is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, and you make the decision as the officer, and that's the way it is. But you can take input. And I don't know if you've experienced it, which actually I know you have, because I know you're sharp and you work in a good spot with good people. But there's been plenty of times that I was thinking one thing, and without me asking for suggestions or asking anything, somebody threw out a variable that I didn't see, and it completely pivoted me.
Yes.
On the flip side of that, I've had a couple times where I listened to some people, again, not my shift, not my station, to make that clear. I listened to some people and I was wrong, where I should have followed my instinct. But there's going to be a time where your all-stars are going to be telling you something, but your gut's going to be telling you to stick with your decision, or what you wanted to do, no matter what they say. And you're going to have to tune them out and follow your instinct. Because I'm going to tell you, I've had maybe a handful of times where my gut was continuously telling me to do something against what everyone was telling me. And I was so worried that I was wrong. I followed my gut anyway. And every time I followed my gut, I was right. It was less than a handful. I was 100% correct. And there was never any vindictive, I told you so's, but there was a couple of, a person said to me, ooh, damn, glad you didn't listen to me. I know that's very vague, very, very vague, and very broad stroke of the brush of what happened. And I'm not going to get into the details. But the long story short, if there's nothing else that you ever listen or nothing else you take from this podcast today, if your gut is telling you to do something, do it. And my gut instincts, one was on a fireground. Mm-hmm. One.
Yeah.
Everything else was a personnel decision, whether or not to say something to somebody, or hitting the brakes and just letting it play out and letting the situation develop. Or the last one was, I could hammer, or I could just stop, document, hit at the right time. And I did that, and it paid off tenfold.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
huge,
fireground,
man.
the
Yeah.
fireground is the easiest. It's 10% of your life as an officer and as a leader. The other 90% is what makes it incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Managing human behavior.
Managing the human behavior, because any management of humans starts with how you manage yourself, how you carry yourself, and how you interact with people, and how you communicate. Because if you can't communicate correctly, have the right body language, and go down the correct path of how to manage the situation, everything turns to shit. And then when you start doing that wrong, it affects the fireground. It affects everything.
Yeah.
Everything you do.
Yeah. No, the two big things that I took from that were sometimes we build these mental models up. We do this job long enough. We have these mental models and processes and experiences, whether that's on the fireground or it could be a reputation based thing or something that you've experienced inside the firehouse with that human element. You know, we get intimate snapshots around the kitchen table of what's going on with these people when we interact with them. And sometimes you don't really know what's at play, but they build up behind the scenes, and that's where that gut feeling comes into play. You get all these little variables. You're like, man, something's just not right. Or maybe it's like, nah, I really feel like we need to go this direction. So I certainly feel that and have experienced that, just trusting that gut. And the other thing was this, sometimes we can be very hard on ourselves because of one singular event, but when you do stretch it out over time, you're like, okay, consistency is king here. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. Yes, I need to rework what I did here. I learned something, but don't let that one thing be the thing that just drives you down and like totally messes with your headspace. Because if you bring it out over an entire year, like, okay, no, we're all tracking really well. We're progressing here.
It's like quicksand. Have you ever seen that movie? The Replacements? Is that the name of the movie with Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, the football movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're in the locker room, and they start talking about quicksand, right? So everybody's laughing and joking. They're like, what are you afraid of? And the guy's like, I'm afraid of spiders. And they all kind of laugh at him and whatever. And one guy, he said, quicksand. He's like, well, what are you talking about? And he's like, you kind of, something happens, and then one thing happens, another thing happens, and then another, and another. And then you're in so deep, it's in over your head. You can't breathe. You can't move. You're stuck, right?
Yeah.
It's quicksand. So if you screw up one thing, and that gets to another, and then another, and it'll lead to other things. So you blow an address on a fireground, and then you run a box later on. Now you're terrified because you blew the last call, and your instincts are telling you, hey, this address is this. This is the house you need to go to, or whatever. And you look in the map and you're like, the map doesn't look right, and I don't know why. I don't think it should be a left here. I think it should be on the right. Something's not right.
Yeah.
Well, you're already shaken. You don't want to make that decision. You don't make the right decision. You're afraid to go with your gut.
Yeah.
That I talked about before, and you're wrong again. And then you go on a medical and you think, I'm just going to help out and do whatever. And I don't think the medic should be doing that. So you're afraid to say something to him, and you don't. And the medic is wrong. Or you think you need to do this, and then that's wrong. And then it's over and over and over, and you feel like and look like and sound like and act like the biggest idiot in the world. And no matter what you do, everything is wrong. And everyone is just watching.
Yeah.
And they see everything.
Yeah.
And they talk about everything. So now you're in over your head. You can't do anything right. Everybody's talking about it. And there's now a tension or a tone, a palpable atmosphere that you can cut with a knife. And if you don't see that, you're either lying to yourself or you're oblivious. So, and that's the best way I can say that.
I dig that, man. No, I certainly feel that. Let's flip the script a little bit. We were definitely going more of the like firefighter rank in-house culture route. It flips a little bit, I think, when you are dealing with challenging superiors, whether that's like an immediate or like something higher level, more the political side of things. We might get decisions sent down that we don't agree with. Or maybe there are people that probably didn't earn that promotion, and I don't want to say they're negligent, but maybe there is some maliciousness or politics at play that we are now on the receiving end of, right? How are you managing that? Because those can sometimes just turn firehouse culture and just have it go sideways and negative really quick. You know, we're all at the kitchen table, we're having our morning coffee, we're talking about transition, and then the politics of the day come up, and then really quickly the entire group can get bent out of shape. How do you manage that either within the firehouse culture or like directly one-on-one? They might show up to the firehouse. Maybe you see superiors out on a call and things are happening that, you know, can mess with your headspace or is just going to mess with the firehouse culture. And you don't want, that's like sacred space, right? We don't want to mess that up. So how do you handle those leaders that you're like, man, I just really am having a hard time here. I don't agree with it or whatever.
Well, I mean, you need to pick and choose your battles too, right? A lot of those people, I think, when it comes to toxic leadership or it comes to people putting out policy that clearly have no idea what they're talking about or doing, or they're talking about making decisions, they literally have no idea what they're talking about, or they're going to make a bad decision, or they do something stupid. The people already know it's dumb. You don't have to really do a lot with that because they know what they're getting. But now if it's something that comes down and not my firehouse, not my ship. But if somebody comes down, like let's say you're a lieutenant, you have a station captain, and your captain's coming up with something that's kind of not going to make a whole lot of sense and it's kind of dumb, right? It's a station memo, and they want to do whatever it is. If you know your policies, you know your department general orders, and you know what you're doing is what they're about to do. Is going to directly conflict and contradict that. You're going to know your department policy says if an order conflicts with standing policy and it's not a safety violation, you say something to the supervisor, and if they tell you to do it, you do it. That's just the way it is. There's things that you will not get away. That's just life. It also says in there that you're not supposed to create an order or a policy or a memo that contradicts orders. So if you have, a SOP that the chief signs off, the chief has their name on it, and this is our SOP for Smith County Fire Department, you're not supposed to put something that contradicts them. That's just not how that works. So if you have somebody coming down with that, you pull them aside. Hey, captain. Hey, chief. I got this memo, and I'm reading it, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's conflicting with this, and this. And if you want me to enforce this, I understand, but we have a problem here because it's conflicting, and I don't know how to manage this correctly. You pull them. You talk to that person one-on-one. That's how I would handle that. I think I've had similar situations, and I talked to the person one-on-one, and it either went okay or I kind of got, all right, cool, dude, you're gonna enforce that. Okay, well, and I'm not gonna tell you how to go around people or anything, but I've talked about on here. We have talked about this before. Is if you know your policy very, very well, you're going to understand the gray area.
Yeah.
So that's not to say to ignore them. That's not to be, I'm not promoting any type of deviance. However, if you know policy correctly and you know a policy is not efficient, effective, or correct, you can stay within your policy that is and navigate around that to where you still kind of follow what they want, but you're following the policy you're supposed to. And because they will, when they conflict, and that supervisor was like, hey, I told you to do this. Hey, supervisor, I get it, but this is our policy, and I've been following my policy. What you're saying is not following policy, and I have to follow one, so I'm following this. That's just the way it is. So when it comes to other people, though, like you're at the firehouse, you're at the kitchen table, or, and they're not complaining, but they're saying whatever. What I've learned is try not to feed into it. If they're kind of going and they're complaining and all of them are kind of going at it, not in a bad way, but everybody's kind of chucking and jiving, get up and walk out.
Yeah.
Let them have their time to complain.
Don't feed the flames.
And if they say, hey, what is this supposed to mean? You read it and be like, I'm not really sure where they're going. I'm not sure, I don't know. But we don't understand what they're seeing. We don't understand their context. There's context. There was a scenario recently where notes got published, but there's no context to notes, and everybody kind of lost their minds a little bit, which is frustrating because, you know, you're giving out things without context, and now I'm picking up the pieces of frustrated employees who are getting screwed, right?
Sure.
What do I say about that? Well, you tell them. There is nothing to worry about until it's something to worry about, right? I think Bill Barr said, why worry about stuff that hasn't even happened yet? If it happens yet, then worry about it then. Who gives a shit now? I think is that what he said.
Yeah, right.
You know, and the worst thing you can ever do is feed into it, I think. And I think there's a weird scenario where if people are going to talk shit about a battalion chief, a captain, a fire chief, about policy, and then you jump in and join in and you allow that kind of stuff, or you promote it, or you entice it, they're going to do it to you about you at some point, because you're saying that's okay. So the power, what I've learned is just listen. If they kind of want you to say something, or they say something to you, or they ask you directly, I say answer correctly. Don't really get into it. I would not get into it. I don't think that's a good idea. And quite frankly, and I hate to say it like this, but there's a lot of stuff, man, that I'd get when I walk out of the room. I really do, because they don't want my opinion. They want to talk. They want to talk shit.
They're looking for affirmation. Yeah.
They're looking for affirmation. Well, I mean, I don't really know if it's affirmation. I think a lot of them just want to get their frustrations out, and they feel the most comfortable talking with each other in the firehouse.
Sure.
You know, and you can sit around and just not engage in the conversation or not talk about it. But, you know, the best thing you can do is not have your phone in your hand, listen to people as they talk. You know, if they ask you something, great. If they don't, just listen. Don't talk. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. You don't have to have the answer for everything. Just listen. It's that. I really do think it's that simple, because it becomes very damaging when you have situations like that. You start running your mouth and saying things and saying stupid things, and you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't understand policy, and you start talking about policy that you don't know anything about. There are more opportunities for you to look like an idiot, lose trust, and lose respect. So why engage in that to allow yourself to be in that situation in the first place? Let them have their moment.
Yeah.
You can show you care about them by listening to them. You know, saying, what do you think about this, Lieutenant? Man, I'm not really sure. I don't really know a lot about it. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna have to read the policy. I gotta go back and look at it. I don't know. Or, you know, my favorite that I've heard, I don't really say this much, but something comes out and that person will be like, well, it's Dave Smith. What do you expect? It's him. Who gives a shit what he says or puts out? It's stupid.
Yeah.
You know, and in those scenarios, when they say that, I don't say anything. I don't actively engage and agree with them to undermine and shit on another officer or another chief or whatever. I might crack a grin, and I think that's an unspoken, like, they get it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Kind of, you know what I mean? Just kind of.
Yeah, I know. I've been there.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh,
I
for
don't
sure.
know if
I've
that makes
totally been
sense or
there.
not.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I get what you're saying. We agree. But I'm not doing this.
I'm not going to go out on
having this conversation.
I'm not going on record here. You're not feeding into the flames. You're not getting everybody riled up. And you mentioned it. It's like the Stoic quote: "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Like, before we get worked up here,
yes.
as the officer, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take a little bit of work on my end, and I'm going to just ask some clarifying questions. Hey, Chief, like, we're having a really hard time, like, reconciling these two policies or understanding the intent. Will you help me understand the why? Help me understand the origination of where this came from. And as soon as you do, a lot of times, like, a lot of those fears go away, right? And then you get buy-in and ownership, and that takes a little bit of work on your end. And like, oh, okay, yeah, we didn't even consider that. Well, this is why we did it. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, this makes sense now. I have more context for it. Or this is incredibly rare. I think I've only had to do this once, maybe twice in my career. Chief, this is something that is, like, directly defies another policy. Maybe it's a union contract if you're in a professional department and that supersedes policy. I don't agree with this. And this is kind of the military side. I'm just letting you know that I'm going to go to the next step, because where it's at right now, blanket, like, violation. I'm going to go to the next step. I'm just giving you the respect to let you know that this is happening. Yeah. Super, super rare. Very rare instance. Like I said, maybe once or twice in my career. And then you just work it out. And generally it's a very respectful conversation. It's a hard one, but it took 5 minutes to just ask a couple questions, and then you get buy-in and better understanding. And a lot of those fears get washed right away, typically.
Well, a lack of communication from the sender for the policy. If you really break it down to the most basic level, a lot of these problems with policies, when people don't understand them, because there's no communication of context.
Yes.
There's no communication. There's no transparency. One thing I've learned and I've seen is when people don't communicate anything and people don't understand the direction that you're going, and you start throwing out policy memos, changes, and all this stuff, but you don't tell anyone anything of why, who, what, where, any of that, people are going to make up their own reasons. They're going to make up their own rumors.
Yep.
And the rumors are going to take action, and then you don't do anything to quell the rumors. You don't do anything to contradict those rumors, and you don't tell us anything. If people don't know context, they're going to make up their own reality. That's just the way it is.
Totally. We fill the gaps really well.
We'll fill the gaps real well, and you'll have those wild, crazy people that have nothing better to do with their lives than to whine, bitch, and complain, and they're going to grab the ear of the wrong people, or the right people, maybe. Of people that are kind of, like I said, we talked about before, those gossipers. They're going to know the right people to talk to, and that is going to spread like wildfire, and that person's going to sit back and laugh. How many times have you heard people start a rumor just to see what happens? Just to mess with one person.
Yes. Conspiracy theories, all of it. Yeah.
When I was a volunteer, we made a joke. I was in Huntingtown. We made a joke one year of having a walk-in rescue squad on order. And next to that was a quint. You know what a quint is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So one of the engines had to be sent out. Well, they just had the drawing of a ladder truck in. So they had an aerial on top of the engine, right? So we did a banquet. We do the banquet every year. Every single department sends people. Like, so in Calvert, there was 7 departments with the dive team, all the county constituents, and all the people that basically give you money to buy a fire truck. All those people were there.
Yeah.
So there was like 200 people upstairs in the banquet hall. To go up to the banquet hall, you pass these 2 boards. One of them is the new rescue squad on order. The other one is the drawings of a quint. The fire department just to the south in Prince Frederick that had a ladder truck. There's one just east, North Beach, had a tower. What do you think they thought about that?
Yeah.
They hated it.
They're getting pushed out.
Right? So it was literally just a joke to mess with the 2 guys from Prince Frederick showing up.
Yeah.
And they got all the way up to the county delegates, everything. They're like, whoa, what is this? It turned into this huge thing. And it wasn't a big deal. It was very, very quickly handled. I probably even handled that night, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But there's no context. So you have all these people that have no idea it was to mess with 2 guys from Prince Frederick. And it was like
wildfire.
Shoot. Yeah. And again, like I said, it was all in fun. Everybody figured it out. They all laughed about it. It was funny. Everybody enjoyed it. It was a good night. There was no problems like that. But there were some people that were kind of like, well, what the fuck's this? But again, something out without context, it's going to spread. Mm-hmm. So that might not have been that great of an example, but I think it.
Oh no, it's fun. Yeah, I'm having fun with it.
And it's funny.
Oh, totally. I love a good ribbon. I want to bring it back to you as the individual. You are in a very busy metro department, high volume of calls. You are also running all your stuff on the side. You're a father. You're a husband. When we talk about the volume of calls, the mental stress, you're still trying to get in workouts and training. There's a recovery aspect. How does that affect you, and how do you affect it? So like, what does your daily discipline look like? What are your non-negotiables? What does resilience mean to you? There's a lot to unpack there potentially, but I would love to know how you're just managing all that, because if you allow it to, there's a lot of stress that can cascade your way, right? So how do you find and build resilience and peace through your life so you can show up and be a better father, husband, officer, leader, all that?
Well, first and foremost, I think one thing that I'll never fully understand or be able to do, I think, as well as I want, is to be able to have that balance. And my wife, I don't know if she'll ever listen to this or not, but she gives me a hard time. She's like, you go to work and you do great and you're able to make all these decisions and you're able to operate and perform and everything. And, when you come home, like you have no problems at home, but now you have problems here, or you have no problems at work, you have problems at home. Nothing bad. She's like, you run a tight ship. I know you do. She goes, but when you're at home, it's like you don't want to follow what we're supposed to do.
It's like decision. No, I get it. It's like decision fatigue. I know tons of leaders, myself, my wife, a lot of friends I'm with, like when we go out somewhere, nobody wants to make a decision because that's all we do in our professional lives.
Right.
I think there's some of that at play.
I despise it. But, like I'll get frustrated with stuff. She's like, you have no problems being at work doing this stuff. When you're home, it's like you have no patience. And I'm like, well, no, I don't really think that's the same. I said, I think, there's a much bigger thing at play when it comes to how I am at home and when I'm at work. At work, there's a lot of rules, policies, procedures, and it's a group of individuals accomplishing goals. When I'm at home, no matter how we do things here, your opinion, my opinion, and what's best for our kid, right?
Yeah.
But, I do think my home life, I should be doing, I don't ever feel like what I'm doing is good enough. And that's not because it's not, it's because I hold myself to such a high standard at home.
Yeah.
Like substantially high standard. I'm not perfect. I'm not the best husband I should be. I'm probably not the best father I should be, because I feel like those are things you should always chase. They're never a destination.
Yeah.
Just like leadership. Leadership is not a destination. It is a journey.
Yeah.
Up, down, peaks and valleys. Fatherhood, peaks and valleys. Being a husband, peaks and valleys. So with work, go ahead.
Man, I'm sorry. Do you want to go deep real quick? My wife and I were just talking about this real quick. You just hit on it. Are the things that we're generally the best at and provide worth are also on the other side one of our greatest fears. So I can resonate with what you just said a lot. I want to hold high quality in everything I do. Sometimes I get wrapped up in a lot of things, but I think one of my biggest fears is that if I'm not producing and helping other people, that I have lost my value and people will just chuck the deuces and be like, you're worth nothing. Right. Then it's kind of like your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. Your biggest worth that you provide is also one of your biggest fears. Is some of that at play?
Yeah. Cause I always feel like I'm never good enough.
Yeah. I resonate with that.
Not as I'm not a good, I'm trying to think how to say this. I feel like what I do is never enough, and that I feel like I'm not good enough in my own opinion. I feel like I should be a better officer.
Yes.
I feel like I should be a better father, and I feel like I should be a better husband. And no matter how good things may go, I always find myself wishing I would have done things better. I wish I would have had more patience with my kid. I wish I would have said something a different way, in a better way, when I was at work with somebody I was interacting with at work. I wish I would have made a faster decision and not been so insecure about it. I wish, I would have spent more time with my kid, I guess. I spend a lot of time with him. So it's not like I'm not here, but I always, in my mind, and I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, I always feel like in my mind, I do all the three things very well individually. When I'm at work, I feel like I do well, I do the best. And if I were to talk to somebody about it, or I were to make my decisions, and even in the moment with myself, I know I'm doing what's right. Yeah. I know what I'm doing is the best of my best ability in that moment. I know in that moment I'm making the best decision with the situation at hand, with the players in the field, and with the scenario or the task at hand. Mm-hmm. When I'm at home, it's a different story. I often look back and I find myself being insecure about things. I find myself wishing I would have done better. I wish I would have pushed a little bit harder. I wish I would have not said something. I wish I would have been more confident. I wish I would have, the list is endless.
Yeah.
Especially on my ride home. The reflection is good, but I never feel like I'm good enough. When I'm at home with my wife, same thing. My kid, I really try to be a good dad, and I think I am. But I always feel like when I'm alone, when, everybody's, school, work, I'm on the drive, I'm working out, whatever it is, I still feel like I'm not good. And that's something I've been struggling with a lot. Not struggling, something I've worked through.
Yeah.
A lot. So why do I say all that? When I'm at work, I can't control the call as far as what call you get. What I can control is my attitude and how I act, how I carry myself. When I carry myself and I act a certain way and I take it one call at a time, one call at a time, I can control the other individuals I work with, I think. Collectively, everybody wants to be there. They're very good at their job. I allow them to do their job. One call at a time. One scenario at a time. I go home, same thing. One argument at a time, one disagreement at a time, one great moment at a time, something nice at a time.
Yeah.
When I'm with my kid, pissed off in the moment, he's pissing, you know what I mean? Like he's frustrated. You know how it is. You got kids, they push every single freaking button. Take a breath, one scenario at a time.
Yeah.
And when that scenario is over, you let it go and drop it and move on. And just take it one step at a time with one thing.
You're being present in the moment and not letting everything else overwhelm you, which I wish more people did.
I'm not good at it. It's something that is always progressing. And the point that I'm making is every single moment I give my absolute best. And I know for a fact I gave my best, and there's nothing else I could have done better in that moment. And all I can do is learn from it or capitalize on it and move on. When I'm in my marriage, same thing. I gave my best and I have nothing to regret. With my kid, I gave my best. There's nothing to regret. May not be happy about it. I may not like them in the moment, like these moments. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned, again, over time, when you live in the moment and give your best, and you live as if you have nothing to regret, over time, you're going to start seeing things getting progressively better.
Yeah.
And then you're going to find yourself in some not so great moments, but it's okay because it's going to get better. Staying in the moment. Whereas if you were to look back and look over everything, it's going to feel overwhelming. It really is. And, it's just, I'm studying right now and looking at all the information. The study is incredibly daunting. But when you break it down over weeks with a couple assignments, it's not that bad. And they all build on each other. So you start to recognize things with your study materials. So in your life, you live by those moments, and because you're so focused and engaged in the moment, and you know that you did your absolute best, those next moments as they come, you're going to remember the moments before them, and the confidence is going to build, and you know that you are going to, may not be great today, but there's always tomorrow, and you're going to remember yesterday, but you're going to move on. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Man, you are, I really appreciate the rawness and realness there that you just hit with. I feel incredibly similar. Like I definitely feel a lot of what you just said. But I appreciate it that you are, like you said, you're taking it day by day, and I'm going to try to be as present as I can within those moments, good or bad, and we're going to roll with them. And when you zoom out, you're like, no, I was able to spend time with those people and give them the focus when I have all these other things pulling at me, and they do. And I know a lot of times I will sometimes misalign my values and mess up my itinerary, and then I'm hard on myself, and I didn't give this person enough of my time and presence. It is a constant dance, but
Well, and just to jump in real quick, it goes back to that stoicism stuff that we talked about before. Anyone that is incredibly confident, or they're stoic on the interior, there is going to be insecurities. There is going to be things that are shortfalls, right? And not to get, I don't want to be political about this, but being a guy, being a grown man, being a father, being an officer, people, I don't want to say they don't care, but you're not the person to be looking for compliments, accolades, and all that, because it's just expected of you to produce. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And as we talked about before, 99% of the problems are in your head. They're not reality, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you gone and tooled in your head about something with somebody, and you walk into work, you're ready. You're like, here we go, freaking guns blazing, your fist is balled, and you're like waiting. And they come in and everything's great, and it's not like anything happened. And the problem that you thought was a big deal, they're laughing about, and they didn't even give a shit about it at the moment. And you're over here tooling over it for 3 days, right? Nobody cares or talks about you as much as you do.
Yeah.
Right? It's our job as leaders, as fathers, husbands, men in the world, to just get over stuff and deal with it. Mm-hmm. Right? Men's mental health is June. I think it's June's men's mental health.
Right. I think it's June.
So suicide rates, depression, all those things are substantially higher for men. If you look at the numbers, suicides, I think, are something outrageous, like 2 to 1 or something. I don't know the exact number.
It's much higher, yeah. But yeah.
I should have probably known the number before I brought the quote up. But like, you know, how many times have you listened, and I'm not making this a man-woman thing, but how many times have you listened, or, you know, you've had your wife kind of deal with some stuff, and she'll be like, oh yeah, you know, Sarah asked me how I was doing because she knows I'm going through blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it made me feel really good that I have such a great network, and these people are, you know, my friends talk to me about it, right? You've heard that a lot.
Totally.
Well, my friends know what I'm going through. No one says a goddamn thing to me. No one gives a shit. They don't.
Right.
Right?
I think it's very common too. As soon as you start to vent, they're like, hey, me too. And then they'll start talking about the problems they're having, which is good that we're talking about it.
Yes.
But when you take a step back, it's like we're all dealing with it.
Right. And exactly what you said. So when you do complain or you do have something, everyone always says, well, you got to deal with it, dude. You're a man. Be a fucking man. Mm-hmm. Grow up. Have a set of balls. Have thick skin. Do this, do that.
Keep producing.
And it gets blown off.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, there's that. And then there's the other aspect with me. I like being a officer. I like being a, you know, it is the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done in my professional life. Most rewarding thing in my life is being a father and a husband. But I'm not going to go whine and complain or talk about my shortcomings with anyone that is not my level or higher.
Yeah.
And is not a mentor in my professional life. Yeah, as an officer in the fire department. I'm not going to talk to my supervisor about insecurities or problems. I'm going to talk to them with problems and my solutions. Mm-hmm. Any problem I go to them with, they automatically has a solution. Or if I'm in dire straits, I'm like, look, man, I have no idea what to do with this. I was thinking this, but you need to help me. I need you to come down here and I need you to help me.
Yeah.
If it's not anything super serious like that, it's going to be, you know, hey, I got A, B, and C. I want to do X, Y, and Z. I wanted you to know about it, right? Mm-hmm. But those two people, I will never go to them without calling somebody that I trust, which is one of those two guys that I'm good friends with and they're mentors. I'll pick it up and be like, hey, I have no clue what to do. This is what I'm thinking. I need your help. And I have no freaking clue. And usually it's kind of a chuckle and like, all right, dude. You know, and not 9 times out of 10, but a lot of the scenarios that I throw up to them, my idea that I have zero confidence in has been pretty close to correct anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So they're like, yeah, you know, that's not bad, but try this, and this too. Or a couple times, you know, what you're about to do not do that. You need to do this and trust me. You got to do.
Got it.
Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think personal and professional. You still, at the end of the day, I think the moral of the story here is that in the right circumstance, you still have somebody that you can be insecure with or vulnerable with and let your guard down with, because you still have to have that. You have to get it out. You have to get it out somewhere, somehow, and you still have those people to do it with and bounce those ideas off of, and they're going to hold you accountable. And like I said, you can't let your guard down with. That's huge, because going back to the manhood thing, we definitely need that.
You need it, and that's why it is so important to pick your mentors, and most of all, pick your partner for your life.
Yeah.
Like, that person can either really drag you down or they can really build you up. And you've been around long enough to know there's people out there that you can enter into a relationship with that are going to drag you down into the trap, drag you into the trenches.
Totally.
It's going to be terrible. I think any grown adult our age knows exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And why that's so important is because as an officer, as a leader, you need to be careful who you vent to, because you never know where the leaks are.
Yeah.
A lot of the leaks can come from snakes. I'd rather a snake at your feet than two at your feet than one in the bush. Wow, I'm throwing this up. No, it's a snake at your feet is better than a snake in the bush.
Yeah.
Not 2 in the hand is worth 5 in the bush, or whatever that one is. I but that's the whole point of what I'm making. So your insecurities in your personal life and those things need to be vented at and stuff at home. Your insecurities and things you're not sure of at work needs to be done very, very, very analytically. Like you have to be so careful who you vent to at work.
Sure.
Do not vent about coworkers with coworkers.
Yeah.
Under your chain of command. In your chain of command,
Absolutely.
excuse me. Do not do it. I've done it. It always gets back to them. And it's always much worse than what you said.
Yep.
And it's one of the most degrading things you could ever do as an officer. I mean, now I do talk shit and all that stuff just as much as the next guy. But I think that was a very, very big one too.
Yeah.
Being very careful who you vent to, because you never know where your leaks are.
Sure.
You got to be really careful.
Yeah, you got to know your audience, man. I know you're obviously a leader, an officer. You are a thinker, and you get to rub elbows with a lot of people. And I know that you're always trying to do things to prepare and to going back to what you just mentioned, to produce. I know when people ask me like a book recommendation or podcast or something, I have my top 1, 2, 3 to 5 that I'm always hammering on, and like, hey, no matter what situation you're going to, I can always probably draw from these like 3 to 5. For you, what are those? What's your top 3 to 5 books, audiobooks, podcasts? Like, what would it be for you if you're going to recommend something?
Well, it's probably not Forged and Unbroken podcast.
Yeah, bottom of the list.
I'm kidding. That is pure jest.
That's all good.
I do. So I get in these weird waves of wanting to listen and find things. Like I'll intentionally go and look for stuff. Like if I'm I'll pull my audiobook too, because I don't want to misquote this, where I'm kind of like in a funk, right? So I base it a lot off of stuff that I'm in the moment with. So if I'm not sure why I'm not recognizing a problem before it hits me, right? Mm-hmm. Or I'm not handling situations correctly. One of the books that I found, and I thought this is a pretty good one, was called Left of Bang by Patrick Van Horn and Jason Riley.
Yeah.
And it's all about that bell curve. The bell curve goes within personnel, your marriage, your kid, calls, right? You want to stay left of the bell curve. And it teaches you a lot of the same thing, interactive listening. And again, I think all things come down to communication. So I have some issues with that. So then I'll go search a book. As far as top 3 though, I think my personal most favorite book, the very, very first book anyone should ever listen to as a potential officer, aspiring officer, a new officer, even an experienced officer, is going to be One Bullet Away from Nate Fick. He's a USMC captain. He's retired, first recon, and it talks about his journey from officer candidate school all the way through Afghanistan and then Iraq. If you've ever seen Generation Kill on HBO, mm-hmm. It's his eyes through that, but the Generation Kill is written by the reporter. I can't think of the guy. He just passed away too. He wrote for Rolling Stone.
Oh, neat.
So that's one of them. What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just following you. That's really neat.
Yeah. No. So but it breaks down everything in leadership. It breaks down, exactly what you're going to get into. It's going to break down into what stoicism is. It's going to break into humility, and it has so many lessons that, I mean, I could talk about this book for probably 2 hours, but basically the long story short is it teaches you the very, very bare bones basics of leadership. And then all those ideologies that you don't get from leadership training, right? Like in the book, and why it's called One Bullet Away is, so they're in OCS, they're doing a field op, and one of the NCOs that is an instructor is talking to the candidates, and he says, what's the difference between you and being the next platoon commander? Nobody said anything. He said, one bullet. So everyone here is one bullet away from leading this platoon. And we are not the military. I'm not saying we are not. We are. What I'm getting at is the torch of leadership can be taken over by anyone at any time. No one specifically, there's no pecking order. Your lieutenant goes home sick, and you get billed a captain on overtime. Somebody needs to continue running that shift, because the overtime captain's probably not going to be familiar with how you do things. Very, very broad parallel. Sure. The point that I'm making is leadership is everyone's responsibility, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Another really good book was It Worked for Me by Colin Powell.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever read this book or listened to this book. It's very good with his lessons of leadership throughout the military, and more specifically in the political atmosphere through Congress. Secretary of Defense, I believe. He touches on that. And I mean, yeah, those are some of my favorite. Wisdom of the Bullfrog is one by Admiral McRaven that just kind of came out and has quickly became, I think, my favorite. Not because Jocko had him on and talked about it. I mean, I like Jocko podcasts, don't get me wrong, and they're fun to listen to. And there's a substantial amount of valuable information in his podcasts. But I do think sometimes it gets convoluted. And I think, again, it's all a matter of interpretation. So a 3-hour podcast is tough to follow. But the book that when McRaven talked about this book, and I went and listened to this book, it's very easy. I think I listened to the book in 2 days. It was that good. But it talks about absolutely everything, about being humble, about knowing your role, knowing your audience, doing shitty tasks, even though you don't want to do them. I think one of the stories he talked about was he was a new ensign, and he just got into the field, and he got to a team, and he's learning how to be a SEAL officer and all that. And he gets called in by the Commodore, and they're like, hey, look, here it is. You're meeting with the Commodore. And he's like, holy shit, it's my first op. Here we go. Hell yeah. And they're in Coronado. He's like, oh, I've been doing great. I've been doing all this stuff. So he walks in, talks to the Commodore. Said, hey, we have a break. I need to make a float. And he's like, he didn't say this to him.
I remember the story. Good story.
He's like, I make a float? I'm a SEAL officer, and my first thing I'm going to manage is making a float for the town. And he did it, and it did great. And I think they won like first place or something. But either way, the whole point is, you're not always going to get the sexy tasks. You're not always going to get the fun things. But if you do everything well, and you always give everything 100% to make it the best you can, live in the moment, right? We talked about that a little while ago. You live in the moment and you focus solely on that. And then it's going to pay over tenfold, because, in this book, what he talked about, and I wish I was a little bit better versed on it, but the long story short was, I think they won best float, and it was their first time winning best float or something like that. But it wasn't about the float. It was about it was given a task, whether you liked it or not, and they want to see how you perform. Because think about it. If you walked in with a shitty attitude, gave him a shitty float, been like, yeah, cool, whatever. Well, that just told his command staff everything they needed to know. You think he was going to get any good ops? Nope. Yep. Make admiral? Probably not. Right?
Yeah.
So there was that. And then there was another part in the book where he talked about he had an accident. I forget what kind of accident he had, but he was running. He was running with the platoon. He wasn't running very fast because he was injured. He was coming back from injury, excuse me. And one of the lieutenants ran up. He's like, hey, what are you doing? You don't have to do this. You're on injury. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it. And he's like, okay. And the lieutenant, the other guy, just fly off, just take off. And he's still running the slowest. Well, the whole point is you don't have to be out there doing it, but you have to set the precedence. Yeah. I think. I mean, that's the way I understood the book. Oh, totally. But again, what I talked about before is it's all a matter of interpretation. It's all how the individual interprets it. And I think through this book, through the One Bullet Away, they talk a lot about that interpretation, and they talk a lot about how these lessons are important, and it's all about relevance. So talking back about One Bullet Away, if you ever watch Generation Kill, there's a point where Fick was sitting next to the wheel with the reporter from Rolling Stones, right? So they were talking about perspective, and he says, in your perspective, do you think Iraq's a dangerous country? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, behind this tire, behind this steel wheel, we can't get shot. So right now, this specific 3x3 foot spot is Iraq's a safe place. The reporter kind of stood there. He goes, I didn't think about it like that. He goes, it's all perspective. Yeah. And he ran off and, went about his business. So I think those are my top two favorite books. And then I like to nerd out about fire department stuff. So there's this book by John Marcello. I can never say his name right. It's Firefighter's Journal.
Okay, cool. I don't think I know that one.
37 years of firegrounds in the firehouses of Philadelphia. And then there's a lot of leadership stuff. There's a lot of, it's very nuanced to the Philadelphia Fire Department. And it's all of his lessons from when he was a firefighter all the way up to where he's a deputy chief. But it's all, there's lessons in here. It's just some really cool firefighting stuff, just cool fireman stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Just like being a fireman, and everything rooted in just being a fireman, thinking like a fireman, letting firemen be firemen, do fireman things, leads to success as a supervisor and as a leader, I think. So I think those are my top three. As far as podcasts, I don't really run after a podcast as much as what it's about.
Yeah, right. I'm with you on that one. I'm much more choosy about the topic or the individual than I am just being loyal to like one. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, so, exactly. So I've talked with a guy, his name's Chris from Baltimore City Fire Department on here. And he was a lieutenant at Engine 14. Now he's at the training academy doing amazing things for the Baltimore City Fire Department for their firefighter rescue and other bailout systems and all that stuff. And Chris Knight, and talking to him and I, stayed in contact, stayed in touch, and all that, and it was really good. And learning about the way they do things in Baltimore. Baltimore City always had my eye. I've always wanted to work there when I was younger, and you know how life is. But his message was really good. One of the episodes that you and I talked about was very, very good. And the point that I'm making is, it's a matter of, I think, what the message is more so than what the show is. Yeah. And I learned that doing my podcast, where people will forgive quality of recordings when the message is sharp, the information is sharp, right? So, I don't podcast as much because I do a podcast. And then I've also kind of just stopped everything. Back in May, everything just came to a screeching halt. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Podcast, I'm not that great with that.
No, it's all good, man. No, you got to be choosy with your time and make it matter. So, yeah. The books are awesome. I've heard of them all, but I have not necessarily read them all. So they're going into the never-ending queue.
They're good.
Yeah, they're good.
They're good. There was another one that, real quick. There's one that's up on actually my promotional list, and it's the Modern Fire Officer. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. It's really good. And I don't want to butcher the guy's last name, but Gary Vermeulen. I wish I could say his name better.
Yeah,
but
I know Norman's book. I'm not okay. I've seen that cover. Yeah, I gotcha.
Oh, I think I've listened to this book 4 times now through audio.
Nice.
If you guys don't pick up any of the other books, pick this one up, because it's 140 pages or something. It's very short, but it's probably one of the best written books for a firefighter I've ever read or listened to.
Cool.
I don't know how to say that well, but like, I think there's people that write a book for firemen and there's people that write a book for information. And he is 100% fireman.
Awesome.
If that makes sense. So
yeah, for sure.
You guys definitely check that one out.
That's cool, man. Well, hey, I know we're getting close to 90 minutes here. It went by quick. I appreciate the fact that we have gone from like fire service leadership, firefighter stuff, all the way to philosophical things, man. We've covered a lot of ground, and you always make it comfortable, natural, and just zooming out. I appreciate the opportunity and the support that you've given me through this and other places. You know, roundabout way, we've had a little bit of a like we have that connection through like mutual friends and family, and that's like been super meaningful to me. And the fact that we get to rub elbows in this space, man, means a lot. So yeah, thank you for giving me 90 minutes of your time, man. That's huge. I know you run Tip of the Spear Leadership, the podcast and the social media page. Phenomenal. You're a man that really needs no introduction, right? Or
I don't know about all that, but I do. Well, the last part, everything else, I 100% agree with you, and I greatly